Here's something that sounds logical, but native speakers don't say it. Electrical toothbrush. Let me give you a situation that happens all the time with English learners. You want to talk about something simple, like a toothbrush, so you say, I bought an electrical toothbrush. And logically, that makes perfect sense. It uses electricity, so electrical feels like the right word. But to a native speaker, that sounds a little strange. They understand you, but it doesn't sound natural or correct. And the reason is not grammar, it's not pronunciation, it's something deeper about how English separates these ideas. Hello, I'm Teacher Sammy.
And I'm Jonathan.
This is Sammy's English in Asia, where we focus on how English is actually used in real conversation, not just what words technically mean, but how native speakers naturally choose between them.
And today we're looking at 3 words that look very similar but behave very differently. Electric, electrical, and electronic. This is one of those cases where the dictionary doesn't help very much. If you look these words up, they all seem to mean something like related to electricity.
Yes, and that's exactly why learners get stuck. If the meanings look the same, it feels like you should be able to use them in the same way.
But in real English, you can't.
Right, native speakers make very clear distinctions between them, even if they can't always explain why.
So let's start with the simplest one, electric.
When people say electric, they usually mean something that runs on electricity in a simple, practical way.
So things like an electric fan, an electric heater, or an electric toothbrush.
Exactly. These are everyday devices. The electricity is just the power source. That's the important idea.
So when I say electric fan, I'm not thinking about anything complex. I'm just saying it's not manual. It uses electricity.
Right, it's very straightforward.
And that's probably why learners feel comfortable with this word.
Yes, because it matches what they expect. It feels logical and easy to apply.
But then they try to apply that same logic to electrical, and that's where things start to go wrong.
Yes, electrical is different. Instead of talking about a specific object that uses electricity, it usually refers to things connected to electricity as a system.
So more like wiring, systems, or technical fields.
Exactly. For example, we say electrical wiring, electrical problems, and electrical systems.
And also electrical engineering.
Right. These are not just things that use electricity. They are part of the structure or study of electricity.
So if I say electric toothbrush, I'm talking about a normal object. But if I say electrical system, I'm talking about something technical.
Yes, and that's why electrical toothbrush sounds strange. It makes it sound like you're talking about the toothbrush as part of an electrical system.
Which is not how we normally think about a toothbrush.
Exactly.
Okay, so it's not that electrical is wrong in meaning.
No, it's just not the word people naturally choose in that situation.
And that's a pattern we've talked about before, possible versus natural.
Right. The sentence can be understood, but it doesn't match how people normally express the idea.
Now let's move to the third word, electronic.
If this kind of explanation is useful for you, subscribe. And if you have a question, leave it in the comments. The word electronic introduces a different kind of idea.
Because now we're not just talking about something that uses electricity.
Right, we're talking about something that uses electricity to process or control something.
So things like phones, computers, tablets.
Yes, these are electronic devices because they have internal systems that control behavior, store information, or process signals.
So the difference is not just power, it's complexity.
That's right.
So if I compare these three, an electric fan just runs. An electrical system connects and distributes power. An electronic device processes and controls information.
That's a good way to look at it.
But then things get a little confusing again.
Yes, because not everything fits perfectly into one category.
For example, a toothbrush that runs on electricity.
Right. A simple one is clearly electric.
But what about a more advanced one? One that has timers, pressure sensors, maybe even connects to an app.
Now it starts to feel more electronic.
So the same object can shift depending on how complex it is.
Exactly.
And this is something learners often don't expect. They think there should be a fixed rule.
But in reality, it depends on how people see the object.
So the language reflects how we think about the device, not just what it technically is.
Yes, that's a very important point.
So if you walk into a store, you might see something called consumer electronics.
Right. That usually includes things like phones, laptops, and cameras.
But you wouldn't see a section called consumer electrics in the same way.
No, that sounds unusual.
And this also explains something many learners hear on airplanes. They tell you to turn off your electronic devices.
Yes, not electric devices.
Because they're talking about phones, tablets, and laptops.
Right, devices that process signals.
So if we go back to the original problem, why electrical toothbrush sounds strange?
It's because that word is pointing in the wrong direction.
It suggests systems or technical structure, not a simple everyday object.
That's right.
So the real lesson here is not just memorizing 3 words.
It's understanding how English chooses words based on how people see things.
Not just what they are, but how they function in everyday thinking.
That's right.
So in simple terms, when something just uses electricity in a straightforward way, we usually say electric. When we're talking about systems, wiring, or technical fields, we use electrical. And when something involves more complex control or processing, we often say electronic.
And remember, some objects can move between these categories depending on how advanced they are. Thanks for listening to Sammy's English in Asia.
And we hope this helps you understand not just these 3 words, but how English actually organizes meaning.
We'll see you next time. If this kind of video is useful for you, please subscribe. And if you have a question, leave it in the comments.